Hey, what's going on guys? Cookies here. This is a VOD review I'm going to do for my own 22 Theater of Pain that we ran. This was in mostly a pug. I believe I only know the tank in this group, and the DPS, I think the rogue and the mage are his friends, and then the druid is a pug. So going into this boss right away, I press Ashen a little bit too early, and I kind of get into my DPS rotation a little bit too early. So when you go into this boss as a healer, or as a DPS, or anyone that is in the tank, you should wait a little bit. Because you can see here, I Ashen before he even jumps in, so I'm forced to bubble right away. So I think the way I would handle this differently is I would just kind of delay my cast a little bit. Maybe use my potion before the pull starts. And just give a tiny bit of time for the tank to grab aggro. Because if I remember correctly, we end up losing somebody here, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe we don't. So on this boss, what you really want to be doing as any healer is lots of damage on pull. Do as much damage as you can and really help just get these bosses down as quick as possible. And then all you really need to do is just make sure that the group is topped off for the Raging Tantrums if you're bringing in the Bloodhorn into the boss. And then outside of this, it depends who your group is focusing. You're either focusing Sethel or Desia, so just help your group kill whoever you're deciding to focus. And then as like your DPS starts to go down, and like I would say basically just use Lust as an idea. So like when Lust is starting to expire, that's when you should kind of switch more into like a healing mode. And you should keep the tank alive. You should use externals. There you can see I throw Sac. I probably should have thrown that like after his meta expired here, if you can see like the duration on meta, because when a Demon Hunter's in meta or Demon Spikes, they're pretty much not going to die to anything. So like here would be where Sac would be really, really useful. Because now his cheat death is going to proc for sure because he has nothing rolling. But if I would have sacked, then he could have like Demon Spiked after and so on. So like for a higher key or anything, I need to keep that in mind. And then we're just filling the gaps with helping deal damage to the bosses still. But again, once you have Lust expiring, you should be focusing much more on healing and keeping the group alive. The other thing you're going to want to watch out for on this boss is when Sethel successfully casts the Searing Death, it's going to randomly target a player and you just need to heal them up and keep them alive. And in a pug group, you're going to probably have that cast go off a lot, so just be ready to keep those players topped off. It's just, it goes on one person at a time. And then we end up going to here, we're going to Shroud. This is probably going to be a pretty unconventional route in terms of like what you'd expect from like a pug group. So just keep that in mind, but we'll still talk about all the pulls and whatnot. So we have wings available, which we should, if I remember correctly, we should press these right away, like as the pull starts, because we want to have wings with Ashen later, because we use it for a big pull. So there's wings. And we want to use that as quick as possible so that we have it back up so that it lines up with Ashen. And then here you should definitely be throwing down, like before the pack starts doing a lot of damage to your group, you should be throwing down stuff like Consecration and helping deal a little bit of damage to the mobs before you start healing a lot. And I'm basically just spending all of my holy power on Word of Glories just to keep the group alive. And we have Bursting rolling. You go into this pack. And basically the way this pack works is try to use like either a big personal cooldown or have other people use personals or use a healing cooldown. So here, for instance, like this is a good example. So we have like this. Ideally, I would have Aura Mastery for this, honestly, because we don't have Holy Avenger. So I would either save Holy Avenger or I would save Aura Mastery instead of using them both on the Ghost, but I just wanted to be extra careful. Because we don't have both of them available, it can be really, really rough in terms of healing through it, because the other problem is we don't have Alter Time from the Mage, and we also, I believe, don't have... Okay, we do have Cloak. So we should be... Is this the second? This is the second cast. We have Barkskin from the Druid. We do have an Ice Block that the Mage can use, but... This is just a pull where like we definitely wanted to be pretty careful here. Like in a hierarchy, we probably would have wiped right there because I didn't have any big like cooldowns to use, and we didn't also have like all of our immunities and stuff. Otherwise, I just asked the rogue to cloak and stuff. But if your group isn't using defensives on those Soulstormer guys, then you pretty much want to use some kind of healing cooldown. So just keep that in mind. Next up, this pull is really straightforward. If these Maguses are ever going to cast a Bone Spear, you feel like your group can interrupt it, or if you're tracking your group's interrupts, like up here, and you see that there's no interrupts available, you can use Turn Evil on these guys, and you can also use Repentance, and you can also use stuff like Blinding Light, and you can also Hodge. So be sure to use your own crowd control to help interrupt the Maguses if you see a cast going off. It can be a big difference. Then we're going to Ash in this pull. We don't have wings up yet, unfortunately. That's that lineup that I was talking about. That's why we want to use wings as early as possible, because using this Ashen right now without wings is kind of unfortunate. All we can really hope for is getting a wings proc during this, and we're not getting one with Awakening. So I should be pressing wings as soon as they're up. I just got a proc. And then we're gonna have a second cast here. And basically what you're doing with these mobs, with the necromancers in them that apply this random dot to people, is you just want to be dispelling that dot on cooldown. So just every time your dispel's off cooldown, you should be hitting somebody. It doesn't matter who. There are like certain ways you can kind of priority target who to dispel, but the most important thing is just that you're using dispel on cooldown. Then we're gonna kill this Magus. We are going to kill the next Magus to spawn Pride, and then we skip this Pride. I guess I'll just rewind it to show how it works. We just run forward, and then we use our Invis-Pot at the last second of bursting stacks. On to the next platform. This is another pull right here if you go on this platform where you want to be really paying attention to Magus interrupts and helping out your group if you can. And I'm not going to use any like healing cooldowns or anything here because we want to save those for either the next pull or the boss, either way. Because they're definitely very unnecessary here. If anyone takes damage during this, it's pretty much a one-shot. And the tank isn't going to take that much damage from the Bone Carver. Or Bone Reaver. Go to the other Bone Magus pack. And I'll go ahead and skip ahead to the next mob. The next pack is pretty scary, so I usually would recommend using 1, maybe 2 healing cooldowns. So that would be like, for instance here, it would be Holy Avenger and Aura Mastery. So when I land, I would think I would press Aura Mastery like pretty shortly after landing. We'll see what I end up doing. I don't actually remember everything that I did in this run. So by now, just to be safe, I would honestly just have pressed Aura Mastery already, like looking back at this. Just because this pull can be kind of randomly scary with the debuffs going out. And then like here, you can see that I have the debuff. So I should be pressing my defensive there. So in like a 23, I would have just died. That is because the Necrotic Bolt went on me, but and it wasn't interrupted. But that's still like, if I had my defensive rolling, I would have been like half HP instead of 5%. So it's just very important. Like as soon as you get those dots, and if you can't instant dispel them, you want to use some kind of defensive. And that's why usually I pick dispelling other people over myself on those kind of debuffs, or any debuffs in general that deal ticking damage, just because I know that I will press a defensive, or I can be reliable in pressing a defensive, while like pugs or people that I don't normally play with, I'm not 100% sure if they're going to, if we're not in comms. So if we're not in Discord together or whatever, then you don't really know if they're going to press their defensive, so it's probably better to dispel them rather than yourself. And then this boss is very straightforward. It helps a lot to be in comms on this boss, because then you can tell who to cast defensives and stuff. Like here, I dispel the DH, and I think we had a miscommunication here, because the mage should technically ice block this very first one, but he ends up being all right. I'm waiting to use my Ashen. I believe I wait to Ashen until we actually have Lust up. We'll end up seeing what I do. I'm pretty sure that's what ends up happening. Could be wrong though. And then here I tell the rogue to cloak. So I dispel one person, then I tell the other person to use defensives. And again, if you're in a pug, the best thing to do is just dispel somebody instantly, and then try to dispel the person who doesn't have defensives. So for instance, if the Druid were to get a debuff here and the Mage were to get a debuff here, I would dispel the Druid, because the Druid doesn't have Bark Skin, but the Mage has Ice Block and Alter. If the Rogue and the Druid get it, then I probably just dispel either one, it doesn't really matter, and then I just, you know, heal the other person. I think in retrospect it is better to always dispel like the Druid here. So like if I would have dispelled the Druid there and then the Rogue died instead, he has cheat death, so like he's not going to actually die. So that's the other thing to think about, is like cheat death is a defensive. So if cheat death is available, then you should prioritize, you know, somebody else on the dispel. And then here I just bubble mine and dispel the Rogue. And we're going to Ashen with Lust. If you can, always try to line up Ashen with Lust. Like if Lust is on, you know, 1 minute cooldown and you have Ashen ready at the start of a boss, wait until Lust is up and you Lust, and then press Ashen, because it just scales really, really heavily with Lust because of all the extra haste you get. Here the Mage gets it, he has Alter, I dispel myself because of that. Just gonna kind of keep him, you know, healthy so that his Alter lasts the whole time. And then the next set of debuffs, if it goes on the Mage, I would dispel somebody else. And if it goes on like Rogue Druid again, I should get the Druid this time instead, because of the reasons that we talked about just a moment ago. Here it goes on the tank and the Druid. I'm going to dispel the Druid because obviously the tank will be okay with a bunch of defensives. You do have to be careful if you have like a Prot Warrior or even other tanks. Like tanks can be really squishy at this part, so you just want to be mindful of that. And then here we're going to do another Pride skip, so I'll just kind of skip ahead a little bit. We pull these Shackled Souls up here. We kill 2 of them and leave 1 of them alive to spawn the Pride. And then we just run away and Invispot. And I mess up the jump here and end up dying, but that is okay. Release. Then we're going to go to, I believe, okay, we go to the PvP quarter here. Now this pack, this first pack that you go into the PvP quarter with, it's kill the Arbalest as quick as possible, so you should be helping your group do some damage to the Arbalest if you can. And then just watch out for who it's targeting. If you have Plater or other nameplate add-ons, you can set it up to where you can see who he's targeting. So like right there, you can see the player's names under his health bar. And that's really important to be able to like kind of predict who's going to take damage so that you're ready to heal them when they take it. Because if the Arbalest just randomly decides to target the same person 3 times in a row back to back with their shoot or their jagged coral, like that person's just going to die if you're not, you know, overly prepared to heal them up. And then we have these ricocheting blades here. These can actually be line of sighted. So when somebody gets targeted, you can just run around. There's 2 corners that you can run around, so you can see the Druid going there. He accidentally messed it up because he didn't run down there fast enough. But you basically line of sight the mob, and then in like these little cubbies, there's one right here, and then there's one behind us that you can't see. This one doesn't work because it's blocked, so there's only 2 that work on this side. So there's the Mage, he ran in there, and then you see he doesn't take damage from the ability. And that's really important to do in like higher keys. You don't have to do it in like lower keys, but just be mindful of it, that you know you can do it to help your healer out, or just to not, you know, not take damage basically. And then other than this, it's really just doing damage to the mob. Like I'm only healing the tank occasionally if he drops to like below half HP. And then other than that, I'm only healing people if they accidentally get hit by the ricocheting blade. Otherwise, I'm just doing as much damage as possible. Keeping down Consecration, putting in Holy Shocks into the boss, and spending my Holy Power on Shield of the Righteous or, you know, Word of Glories if I need to heal the tank and stuff. And we're going to head back up here. This is the same thing. Oh, we have the other guy, actually, the Savage Flurry. So this guy, the tank can outrange him. Like when he starts doing the Savage Flurry, the tank can like jump away or run if he's fast enough with movement speed and whatnot, and just avoid the Savage Flurry completely. But if your tank is going to sit there and tank it, which in pugs it's going to happen pretty much every time, just be ready to use like a big external or just have big healing going into them for every flurry. Because if a tank doesn't have mitigation in it, they will just, I mean, they will just die. Like, the Savage Flurry does so much damage if the tank, like right there, the tank got hit by 2 ticks of the Savage Flurry, and it does like 8 ticks total. And it did half of his HP in those 2 ticks. And then here, he should have Demon Spikes up for this one. We'll see. Okay, we just keep using Cardboard, that's what it is. That's why he's not getting hit at all. We just keep using Cardboard Assassins. We'll go ahead and skip a little bit ahead to the next mob. We're going to skip this pack. And this one's the easy one. There's just a little bit of AoE healing to do, and then you're just moving out of the Whirlwinds. If you're going to use externals during this pull on the tank, you use them during the Unbalanced Strike. You can also use Cardboard to eat that ability if you want. Get out of the Whirlwind. Just keeping people topped up, but for the most part, I'm focusing on damage. Because even like with people taking a little bit of damage, like right now, the Druid, like he's not in any danger. There's nothing that's gonna like randomly target him and one-shot him. He's just gonna take small ticks of AoE damage like that every now and then, because the boss just kind of randomly throws AoE damage at the group, targeting random players. So you don't have to be in a rush to pick people up to full HP, but just, you know, keep people relatively healthy. Don't let anyone drop below half HP, I think is like a good way to judge it. As long as everyone's above half HP, they're not going to die within like a second or two. You have plenty of time to pick them up. And then we have Pride spawn here. This is the only Pride I think we do in this route. So I will go through and kind of talk about how I heal it. The first thing with Pride is try to have Glimmer on as many people as possible. So have that kind of be your priority. But I am spending some Holy Shocks on the actual Pride itself just to help kill it faster. And then, again, if you're in a pug, you kind of just have to guess when people are going to use their defensives. So try to have a weak aura that shows when people use their defensives so that you know who to heal and who not to heal. Because, for instance, I believe we definitely end up dying to this Pride, if I remember correctly. At least 1 or 2 people do. So like they're the mage altars, so I'm not going to really heal the mage. Like you can see there I was about to target him, but instead I ended up targeting the rogue with a heal because the mage is just going to pick himself up to full HP. So if I healed him right there, the altar would just expire and then that healing would go to complete waste. Because it just, you know, it just deletes all current healing that he's taking and just transfers him back to his regular health that he was at when he pressed altar. This boss is very similar to the mob I was talking about before the Pride, where all that really matters is just having people above a certain amount of HP for that ability right there. Everything else in this entire fight is avoidable as far as damage taken. So you do not have to focus on healing people at all in this fight. It's just have everyone at full HP before the next slam, which is, I believe, the Might of Maldraxxus ability if you see on my Bigwigs timers down by the boss's HP. Other than that, keep in mind, like, if the tank is getting hit by the brutal combo and doesn't have anything rolling, you might want to use externals there and stuff, or just keep a lot of healing going into them when that's happening. Help kill the banners when they spawn. That's very, very important as a healer, is you really want to do damage to these banners and help kill them as fast as possible. And then again, he jumps in the middle. We make sure everyone's topped off. And even here, like, I can still just be prioritizing damage. I just put a Holy Shock into the boss instead of healing somebody. I Word of Glory myself. I'm probably going to Holy Shock the boss again here. Yep, I just Holy Shocked the boss again. Even though the mage is in full HP, the Druid is in full HP, we're totally fine. We have 7 seconds until the next Might of Maldraxxus, so this is where I would start healing like the mage and the Druid. So I think here, like, I should have thrown, like right there, that was kind of dangerous to put the Druid and the rogue, or the Druid and the mage in that situation. Like, I should have healed them a little bit more. You want everybody's HP bars just fully topped before that jump goes off, just to be safe. And then here we're gonna go ahead and Ashen. I just wanted to get the boss down and line up Ashen for a later pull, because I don't think saving it for Lust would have been like very effective here, since the next pull isn't like absolutely crazy or anything. Actually, we do a big pull in the Gore Chop quarter, but then I want to have Ashen for when I want it. I believe. If I use it now, I get like I believe I get an extra use of it in the dungeon. The very end. And then we're gonna go to Gore Chop quarter here and do a really big pull. Again, Ashen would be nice here, but I'm pretty sure the way it lines up is it will not line up for what I want it to, but it's possible that it will. So actually looking at this VOD, we might be able to find that out. Because I want Ashen back up for when we pull Gore Chop, basically. So I think if I Ashen here, it will be back up for Gore Chop actually now thinking about it more. I accidentally walked too far forward there, I get knocked up by Volcanic, and then I get hit by the green swirly on the floor, unfortunately, from the mobs dying. Which is just a one shot. What you can do as a Paladin here is, if you don't, in a lot of times, of course, in Pugs, like, you're not going to have people who are aware of what the mobs do a lot of the time, so a lot of the time the mobs are going to kind of free cast and get a lot of things that people might not think about interrupting. So here, the Devour Flesh is what you want to interrupt on the Putrid Butchers. Don't worry about the chops, those you just heal up when people get hit by them, but when he does Devour Flesh, you can use any kind of stun. You can use Turn Evil, as like a Paladin specifically, you can use Turn Evil, you can use Repentance, you can use Hodge, you can use, I believe Blinding Light works, and then, I think that is all the stuns that we have available to us. And if you really wanted to get fancy with it, you could also like taunt it and bubble to block the damage, because as long as he doesn't deal damage, he doesn't heal off the ability. So here's the Devour Flesh, and you can see that one went off, and the mob heals every time that goes off. So you want to just be extra careful, especially in Pugs. Like, it's going to be a big time save if you are the one who is noting that and like stunning it and keeping it from healing itself, because it just reduces the amount of time you have to sit there. So like there, it just went from 15% to 28% or something. And this is just miscommunication on our part as a group, because technically in a group like this, the rogue should be getting all of them, because that's just the best way to handle it, is having a rogue just solo the butchers every time. But that's not always going to be the case. So again, if you're pugging, just take it upon yourself to interrupt that ability. And I think normally we would skip this Pride, but we didn't have an Invis pot up, so we're gonna kill this one. Again, I'm putting Glimmer on the people who need it the most. Right now the mage is an altar, so we don't have to worry about him at all. We're just healing the rogue and the druid. And this is where, next time in retrospect, I would definitely want to use my defensive here during the Pride. Like, you should always use your personal during the Pride, just to help out. Run past and skip this mob. Yeah, see, I have Ashen lining up right here, which is nice to have it back up right here. But I think it's better to line it up for Gore Chop, so I think doing it in that big Gore Chop hole up above, upstairs, is definitely nice, and then it lines up pretty well with Gore Chop, I think. Because I think I end up using it here to help with the next pull that we do. But honestly, that's probably not the best use of it, I don't think. I don't remember. I definitely end up using it here, which I think it's a lot better for Gore Chop. And then, you know, we use it on Gore Chop, and then I would have a little bit of time to use it on like the last boss. I want to be able to use it on pull, but I could use it like in phase 2. And then we're going to do a big pull here without the gas bag. We're just doing all these sludge spears, little dudes. Maybe I don't end up ashening. Maybe I ended up saving it in this key. Interesting. So yeah, if I end up saving it for Gore Chop, then I definitely just don't use it at the end of Zav, even if we're taking a little while to kill him. I just save it for the pull upstairs, and it just lines up a little bit better. And then I can use something like wings on this pull instead of holding everything like I am. I could I'll have wings back up here, and then wings will come back up for the Gore Chop pull, because we end up doing Gore Chop right here. Res, we're gonna skip this guy in the middle. Skip. And this is the Ashen Pole. If you don't have Lust here, and you don't have Ashen, you definitely don't want to pull these mobs into the boss ever. But again, this is where, looking back at it, because like I already know from like running the dungeon, like I should already know that our rogue isn't like focused on getting the butchers. Like he's missed a lot of casts, so I should like take it upon myself to get the butchers. So like there I hodge it, but I missed like the first cast, for instance, and it went off. Here's another cast that's going off, but the rogue ends up getting that one. But just being, you know, being mindful of it, like targeting the butcher and just being ready to interrupt it, and just taking it upon myself to pretty much do it. Especially again in pugs, like where you're not in Discord with the players, it is incredibly invaluable to be doing stuff like this and to just take those responsibilities on yourself. One thing to help out with this pull a lot is you can actually use cardboard assassins when the ads spawn under the boss, and they'll just kind of like aggro under the boss really nicely so that they don't jump all around the room and like, you know, they jump to random targets anyway, so they're gonna still jump away, but it just helps kind of group them up for the tank because it's really hard to grab aggro on them as the tank if they just jump to random players. And then if anyone ever gets hit by chains on this boss, I'm using Bop instantly. You could tell I used Bop earlier, but that was just because the rogue got aggro or got hit by something. I don't know exactly what it was. I think it might have been the chop from the butcher. But using stuff like Bop is really, really handy on this fight. Mostly if people get hit by the chains is like when I use it, because it instant clears the debuff. Here we have the Druid get hit. This is where I'm gonna kind of focus healing into him. I should have Crusader Strike the boss there to like generate that third holy power instead of just sitting there waiting for holy shock, so that was kind of dumb. And we have wings coming back up, which I should pretty much press instantly. There we go. I'm just pretty much using those wings as like a damage throughput and a little bit of a healing throughput to help. Because at this point our tank has pretty much nothing. We have no, you know, we have no external, we have no healing cooldowns. So we have to press wings to kind of get us through there and push us through the last little bit of the boss, especially with our tank not having anything. So weaving in a little bit of damage here and there. Now we're gonna head back upstairs. And I believe we just go right into the boss. Oh yeah, we kill these souls to get a little bit more percent. And then we're gonna go upstairs, kill the boss. On pole here, I do have Ashen, but I believe, again, I'm waiting to use Ashen until we Lust, because we have Lust in 1 minute exactly, which will be right when the second phase is starting. And typically on this boss, there's always like a big you know, it's a big controversy of whether you Lust on pole or on the second phase. So the way it works is if you want to kill the boss faster, you Lust on pole. If you want to make phase 2 easier and cleaner, you Lust on phase 2. That's all that Lusting in phase 2 does. Lusting in phase 2 makes you do less total damage to the boss because you have to do mechanics while you're lusted, but it's like the safer approach. It lets you get through the phase faster, it lets you deal with less of the mechanics in total, because you're getting through that phase a little bit quicker, and it also lets you have like more healing, more damage, like all of that stuff during the second phase. But because the first phase you're doing nothing but standing still here, like even when the ads spawn, you're pretty much just standing completely still and then just cleaving the ads down. Like even here, you don't have, like none of these players have to move at all. Like the Frost Mage moving, he can literally just stand still and get dragged into the thing as long as he doesn't actually touch it. So Lusting in phase 1 gets you like more overall damage and kills the boss faster. Like if you're just going for a speed kill or trying to beat a timer, you want to be Lusting on pole. If you want to just play it safe, you have 6 minutes left, you know, your Lust isn't up yet, and you just want to make sure that the boss dies and you have plenty of time to kill it in a Mythic Plus, then you just Lust phase 2. And then going into phase 2 here, don't hesitate to use stuff like Bubble, Defensive. Like here when these ads are spawning, I should be pressing my personal, I end up bubbling here. But do be aware, like what I did there, I bubbled, so it spawned my ad way away from us, because when you bubble, it instantly removes the debuff. So try to bubble something like under the boss, or wait until the group moves and then bubble. Try to bubble in a good spot so you drop the ad nicely. Kind of stacked on the other ones or something, or at least around them. And that's it, boss goes down easy. We finish up some trash. Nothing dangerous really about this trash, just keep the tank alive because the contenders actually hit like trucks. And then we get a nice time with like 3 minutes and 40 something seconds to spare. And that was the 22 theater I ran. We tried a couple attempts at a 23. We did even a 24 just for completion and like to practice the bosses and stuff at a higher key level. And it definitely didn't go terribly. I think we missed the 23 attempts, or the plus 23 TOP attempt or attempts that we did. I think we had multiple keys. We missed those by like one. I think the lowest one that we had was like 1 minute. But it's definitely doable. We just made a lot of mistakes. But yeah, hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys had a fun push week. But don't forget, every week is a push week, so keep going at it if you guys are trying to get some keys done. And don't forget to stop by the stream, the Patreon, and don't forget to like and subscribe and all that stuff to help out the content growth. So thank you guys again for watching. Have a good day.